Hello guys and welcome to IGCSE on fingertips. This new video is about the predicted paper of October-November 2024 for the MCQ of Chemistry 0620. Let's get started. But before we get started, one small disclaimer that we have learned to say from our comment section is that this is not a paper you can expect in your exam. When I say predicted paper, I predict these topics will be asked in these form, not the exact question. So consider this a revision video rather than a shortcut to scoring marks. With that in mind, let's get started. We have the first question. A gas is placed in a sealed container. Gas has a pressure of 1 atmosphere and a temperature of 50 degrees Celsius. It is heated to 100 degrees Celsius. Which row describes the cause of pressure of the gas and the effect of increasing the temperature of the gas? Okay. Cause of gas pressure, collision between gas particles. That is already happening, right? So I can skip option A and B. Let's look at C. Collision between gas particles and the container, collision between gas particles and the container, right? So both of these combine and exert pressure. Now, what happens when you increase the temperature? When you increase the temperature, particles start moving more vigorously. Now, collision become less frequent. If they start moving more vigorously, will the collision be less frequent? No, in fact they will be more frequent. So the average speed of gas particle increases because temperature is the average kinetic energy of the particles, and in that kinetic energy depends on velocity because mass is not changing. So D is the correct option for this answer. Then let's look at question number 2. We have 4 experiments, each containing a different acidic gas, are set up as shown. The dividing glass plates are removed at the same time. In which set of apparatus does the litmus turn red first? So we have carbon dioxide, hydrochloric acid, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide. I believe the one that is lightest will reach the damp litmus paper first and will turn it red first. To understand that, let us write the masses of these things. So you have 12 plus 16 plus 16, 32 plus 12 is 44 gram. Here you have hydrogen as 1 gram. This is their relative atomic masses. I am trying to find their relative molecular masses. The gas with lowest relative molecular mass diffuses the fastest. So we have 1 plus 35.5, which is 36.5. Right? You can find these values from the periodic table on the last page of your paper. Here I remember the values, so I am doing it on my own. So here you have 14 for nitrogen plus 16 oxygen, and it's twice. So like this. So 32 plus 14 will give me 46 grams. Sulfur is 32, oxygen is 16, and 16 to the 32 to the 64 gram. So here by looking at this, HCl, which is acid, right, has also the lightest mass. So this will turn damp litmus paper blue. You cannot look for just acids because it is a damp litmus paper. All of these oxides are non-metal oxides. Non-metal oxides will dissolve in water, combine with water to form a slightly acidic solution, which is enough to turn this red litmus paper blue. So without calculation, you could not go for HCl. Then let's look at the next question. We have group 1 element potassium forms an ionic bond with group 7 element fluorine. Which two ions are produced? So if they say group 1, then K should form a positive ion K plus, and group 7 fluorine should form a negative ion minus, because both of them have 1 as their valency. But potassium wants to lose that electron, fluorine wants to gain that electron. So this is what it should look like, and I think B option agrees with us here, right? Here both are positive, here both are negative, and here the charges are misplaced. Potassium is shown as negative charge. Then we have question 4. The percentage abundances of three isotopes in a sample of neon are shown. What is the relative atomic mass of sample of iron? Now what are isotopes? Isotopes are the same elements, atoms with different neutron number but the same proton number. So now percentage abundance of mass 20 is 90.48, right? What I'm doing, I'm finding weighted average, or simply mass multiplied by its percentage abundance, mass multiplied by its percentage abundance plus the next mass multiplied by its percentage abundance, and this whole thing divided by 100 because the total abundance is 100. Here I will need a calculator. Let's find out 20. We have 20 multiplied by 90.48 plus 21 multiplied by 0.27 plus 22 multiplied by 9.25 divide by 100. We get 20.1877. Okay. Now 187, right? If I round it off, I will get 20.19. So that will be my answer over here. Let's look at the next question. We have potassium reacts with iodine to form potassium iodide. Which statement about potassium iodide is correct? Each potassium atom shares a pair. No. If it forms potassium iodide, right? This is an ionic compound. We just discussed another example where this was forming a positive ion and iodine must form a negative ion. This is what should happen, and the compound should have a formula of Ki. In potassium iodide, the particles of potassium have more protons than electrons. It makes sense. See guys, if it has positive charge, it does have one proton more than the number of electrons. In potassium iodide, particles of potassium have one more proton than electron. I think this is the correct answer, but a general way of answering MCQ, you should read all the options. So potassium iodide has a high melting point because it is a covalent compound. No, we just discussed it is an ionic compound. Potassium iodide has low melting point because it does not have a low melting point, right? So in fact, B is the correct answer, but it doesn't hurt to just go through other options. Then we have, which substance has the lowest melting point? The one that has lowest type of bonding, right? So if it is molecular, right, the simplest structure has the lowest melting point. So if it's molecular, it has the lowest melting point. So graphite, it's a giant structure. Methanol, this is a molecular structure. Although it has liquid state and poles and hydrogen bonding, it is still liquid, right? So this is liquid, this is, we know, solid. This is also a giant molecular structure, so solid. This is also a giant molecular structure, but ionic giant molecular structure, so solid. And therefore methanol is the only one that has simple structure, right? Simple covalent structure. So methanol will be your answer over here. Then we have the next question. The diagram shows structure of molecule of ethyl ethanoate. What is molecular formula of molecule of ethyl ethanoate? So let's have a look. 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I'll write 4 carbons. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 hydrogen. And then again there is 1 and 2 oxygen. So I'll write O2. So C4H8O2, right? C4H8O2. This is my answer. Here, guys, please pay attention that if this was a empirical formula, the answer would be C2H4O. What I will do, I will take the HCF of these three numbers and divide all the three by their HCF. This is the ratio of combination of atoms in this molecule. But as they are asking molecular formula, I have to show all the atoms present, right? and they are not in ratio like this, this is incorrect, right? See, this is the empirical formula just to confuse you, right? So that's that. Then we have next question. Which substance is a mixture? Air, graphite, oxygen, water. Graphite, we've just discussed, is a giant molecular structure which is carbon. Oxygen is an element, although it is diatomic, it is still an element. Water is a compound, right? Compounds and elements are pure, right? Everything else is a mixture. So graphite is element, oxygen is element, water is a compound. Therefore, air is a mixture. The number of moles of X, Y and Z in a compound are shown. What is the formula of their compound? See, what are they doing? They are shortening the method and asking us to find the molecular formula from their ratio. So what I will do, I will simply write them like this and I will divide all of them by their HCF. Here the HCF seems to be 0.3. So 1 times, 2 times and 4 times. So it should be X2, Y4, Z1. Let's say which formula, if any. Yes, D agrees with us, right? So D is your answer. Then let's have a look at the next question. What do we have over here? 1 mole of silver nitrate contains 1.2 into 10 to the power 24 ions. Okay. How many ions are there in 0.25 mole of iron oxide? Now see, we are looking at AgNO3. So Ag plus and NO3 minus. So 1 mole of silver nitrate will contain double the number of ions. It contains 2 moles of ions, right? So 6.0 into 10 to the power 23 multiplied by 2, right? What is this? This is Avogadro's number. They have given this value, so you can cross multiply, right? I'll show you that method also, but here Avogadro's number, this will give you 12 into 10 to the power 23, which can be written as 1.2 into 10 to the power 24. So there is that one method where you remember the Avogadro's constant and then you think about it, that there are, for each mole of iron oxide there are 5 ions. So 1 mole has 5 ions. 0.25 moles have how many? So it's 0.25 into 5. So it has 1.25 ions, right? 5 times of this, and therefore I will do 1.25 into 6 into 10 to the power 23, right? 6.022 into 10 to the power 23. But I think this is also enough. Here we can simply multiply 1.25 into 6, which gives us 7.5 into 10 to the power 23 particles, right? Let's find out. Yes, there is an option C available. Now, what is another method? Probably an easier method. Let's find out. So if there are 2 ions, 1 mole contains 1.2 into 10 to the power 24 ions, right? If there are 2 moles of ions each. Now, if there were 5 mole of ions, how many would it contain over here? 5 into 1.2 into 10 to the power 24. But do we have 1 mole? No, we have 0.25. So I will multiply 0.25 over here. This will also give the exact same answer. This uses ratio, this uses more of chemistry. You can do whatever method you find easier. Then we have concentrated aqueous magnesium bromide is electrolyzed using carbon electrodes. Which equation represent the reactions occurring at each electrode, right? So positive electrode is anode and negative electrode is cathode, right? Oxidation at anode, reduction at cathode. Reduction is gain of electrons. So straight away these two are losses of electrons. I can remove these two by just understanding the definition of reduction, right? Also they have said it is concentrated aqueous. If it is aqueous, the more reactive metal likes to stay as iron. Now, clearly, if you remember your reactivity series, which you have to, you can find that magnesium is more reactive. Therefore, this is the correct equation at the negative electrode. Hydrogen accepts electrons, gets reduced, and because it is concentrated, we know halogen gets released on the anode, and therefore A is your answer, right? Then we have, aqueous copper sulfate is electrolyzed using carbon electrodes. Which statement is correct? Bubbles of hydrogen gas are formed at anode. See, if hydrogen ever forms, it forms at cathode. Okay. Bubbles of oxygen gas are formed at cathode because oxygen is negatively charged and it forms from OH minus, right? It is loss of electrons. So oxidation at only anode. So A and B are incorrect. Copper is deposited on the anode. No, actually copper decreases from the anode, right? The blue color of the solution fades because you are using carbon electrodes in the solution. Only copper ions are decreasing. Copper ions go and get reduced at the cathode, and there are less copper ions by when the reaction goes forward. The number of copper ions in the solution go on decreasing. Copper ions are blue in color, and therefore the blue color of the solution does fade is your answer. Then we have, when water is added to anhydrous iron chloride, FeCl3, hydrated iron chloride, FeCl3 dot 6H2O is formed and energy is given out. Which reaction pathway diagram represents the formation of anhydrous iron chloride in reverse reaction? So, if this reaction is exothermic, this reaction has to be endothermic. Let's look for endothermic reactions. Okay, so you have, see, let's first, yes, okay. Can we all agree that only A and B are endothermic? D is exothermic and C is exothermic because products have lesser energy than reactants. Now, if you look at the equation given above, right, I'll not scroll it, but I think you understand that on the equation above, this is the hydrated salt, right? If we are starting from hydrated salt, only then the reaction is endothermic. This reaction is actually exothermic. They have said that it takes water, combines with water, forms a crystalline salt and releases energy when it forms a hydrated salt. But here, this will require energy, right? Energy will be required to remove the water of crystallization from the salt. So B is your answer. Let's see if there are more questions over here. No. Then we have, which statements about hydrogen are correct? When hydrogen is burned, heat energy is released. Okay, this is correct. Now let's look at, so 3 only cannot be your answer. So let's immediately look for options that contain 3. When hydrogen is used as fuel, water is the only product. This is also correct. Okay. So 1 and 3. Only option A has both 1 and 3 as correct. Now let's read the second statement and find out if it's correct or not. I think it is. When hydrogen is used in fuel cell, electrical energy is generated. Yes. What happens in a fuel cell? Instead of combustion, the transfer of electron happens through conductors. These transfer of electrons can be used as energy, right? So it is correct. Let's go to question 15. Solid X is heated strongly. The color of solid changes from blue to white. What is solid X? We know only one, or rather let's say 2 solids that change their color when water is removed. So one is copper sulfate. It is blue when hydrated and white when dehydrated or anhydrous. Cobalt chloride is blue when anhydrous and pink when hydrated. So what would go from blue to white? I think it should be, what should be X? It should be hydrated copper sulfate, right? Hydrated has blue color. Let's see question number 16. So we have iron chloride solution reacts with chlorine gas. The equation is shown. Which statements about this reaction are correct? Fe2 ions are reduced to Fe3 plus ions. Okay, let's see what is happening. They are saying reduction, right? If I say reduction, reduction should be gain of electrons, right? If it goes from Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, which is true, right? This is 2 plus over here and this is 3 plus over here. How would you find that? Chlorine has a -1 charge and there are two chlorine, so Fe must have a +2 charge. Only then the compound has a 0 charge all over. With same calculation, you will find iron has a +3 oxidation state over here. For this to happen, electron must be removed and oxidation is taking place. So one is definitely incorrect, right? And there are very different kinds of options. So let's first find all the statements, find out which of them are correct. Chlorine acts as a reducing agent. See, if iron is not getting reduced, chlorine cannot act as a reducing agent, right? Iron is getting oxidized, so chlorine must get reduced, or in other words, chlorine must act as an oxidizing agent. So definitely second is also incorrect. Now let's look at options. Second is incorrect, so this cannot be correct. Second is incorrect, this cannot be correct, this cannot be correct, and only this is correct. Let's now look at third and fourth statement. Fe2 plus ions each lose an electron. Yes, this is what the equation tells us. Cl2 molecules are reduced to Cl minus ions. Reduction is gain of electrons. Molecules are gaining electrons, 1 electron per atom. So they are getting reduced rather than being reducing agent. So in fact, D is your correct answer. Then we have which statements about acids and bases are correct. An acid reacts with a metal to give off hydrogen, right? It does. This is a characteristic reaction. For that, the metal has to be more reactive than hydrogen. A base reacts with ammonium salt to give off ammonia. Okay, so we have ammonium chloride, let's say, and sodium hydroxide will give ammonia, water, and sodium chloride. Okay, I think this is also correct. An acid reacts with carbonate to give off carbon dioxide. It does. Alkaline solutions are orange in methyl orange. Okay. Do we have an option where 1, 2, 3, and 4 all of them are correct? No, we don't. And honestly, I don't remember if this is correct or not. But if I'm sure the other 3 are correct, right? Then, because we don't have an option right now, A is the correct answer. I believe. Go to your textbook, find out should it be orange. As far as I can tell, orange, red, all of these colors are acidic colors. So 4 has to be incorrect, right? Find out from your textbook, from your notes, from somewhere. Okay, question 18. Oxide 1 is solid that reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid. Oxide 2 is a gas that reacts with sodium hydroxide solution. What are the formula of oxides? Okay, reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid, so has to be a basic oxide, so it cannot be these two. Oxide 2 is a gas, cannot be this, and this leaves us with only option B, right? And because nitrogen dioxide, it is an acidic oxide, will definitely react with sodium hydroxide, which is a basic compound, right? It is an alkaline compound. Question 19. Which reaction is photochemical? Photochemical reactions, reactions that require light energy to start. Addition of bromine to propene. No, this is a characteristic reaction. This double bond will break anyway because it wants to form a saturated compound. So addition is not a photochemical reaction. I would say substitution will be a photochemical reaction. Esterification of ethanol to ethanoic acid. I think esterification of ethanol and ethanoic acid, this is a dehydration reaction, right? It requires concentrated acid like H3PO4 or H2SO4. Oxidation of ethanol. Oxidation of ethanol requires, okay, of ethanol, not yeast. It might require bacteria or it might require K2Cr2O7 or KMNO4, potassium permanganate or potassium dichromate as oxidizing agents, but definitely not light. We are left with just one option, substitution of methane with chlorine. So if you start with CH4 and if you want to add Cl2, you will need UV light. Only then this particular reaction takes place. Only then the first substitution reaction takes place, which is also used as a reaction differentiating between saturated and unsaturated hydrocarbon. Unsaturated do not need any kind of light energy for this reaction to happen, right? Bromine water decolorizes with alkenes. The equation shown, question 20, the equation shown represents a reaction at equilibrium. M and N represent the balancing numbers. A high temperature increases the concentration of Q. So this is endothermic and this is exothermic, right? When temperature increases, endothermic reaction is supported more than exothermic reaction. A high pressure increases the concentration of Q, so which means M is greater than N, right? From here I have found out this happens. Which statement about the reaction is correct? Forward reaction is exothermic and M is greater than N. See, forward reaction is endothermic. This part is incorrect. Forward reaction is exothermic and M is less than N. This is also incorrect, and because, okay, this is also incorrect, right? Forward reaction is endothermic and M is greater than N. This is what we have found out from our own deduction as well. So that is your answer, right? No more questions over here. Then we have next question, which metal has variable oxidation state? The metal that is transition element has variable oxidation state. Aluminium not transition, calcium not transition, copper is a transition, has a oxidation state of Cu plus and Cu2 plus. So C is your answer. An aqueous cation reacts with aqueous sodium hydroxide to form a white precipitate. So XOH is insoluble. Hydroxides of group 2 are generally insoluble. Precipitate is insoluble in excess sodium hydroxide. Okay, what is the aqueous cation? See, chromium I think does not give, as far as I remember, it gives some other color, not white, right? So that is not your answer. Between aluminium, calcium and zinc, I think zinc and calcium, what happens with aluminium? Let me remember. It should dissolve. I think aluminium and zinc should dissolve. Calcium remains insoluble in excess sodium hydroxide. I will go with calcium here, but what you can do to find the exact answer is turn to the last page of, let's say, March 2024's paper 6. On last page you will have a data which will tell you what ion reacts in what way. Now in paper 6 you have all of that data given, but in paper 2 or paper 4 they can ask you these things, that what is the identity of the ion. So you have to remember those things anyway. I think it is calcium. Let me know if it is calcium or not, right? Then we have zinc oxide is amphoteric. Amphoteric meaning it reacts with acids as well as bases. Which row describes reaction of zinc oxide? Reaction with alkalis? Yes. Reaction with acids? Yes. So base and acid both. Option A itself is the correct answer, right? Let's look at question 24. A student carries out an experiment to prepare pure magnesium sulfate crystals. Diagram shows the first stage of preparation. Adds magnesium carbonate until no more reacts. Which process should he use for next stage? So what will form over here? Magnesium sulfate will form, carbon dioxide will form, right? And water will form. So magnesium sulfate, this is a soluble salt, or is it an insoluble salt? All sulfates are soluble except barium, and one more salt is insoluble, but magnesium sulfate is soluble, right? So if it is soluble, then evaporation, neutralization is not required, right? Because this is soluble, filtration does not work. Okay, because it is sulfate, you can go for crystallization, but does it form a crystal salt? I don't think. Pure magnesium sulfate crystals. Okay, I think the next process will be, it should be evaporation, and then should uh, wash and dry the crystals, right? So evaporation will have magnesium sulfate left behind. This magnesium sulfate can be washed and then dried clean to get pure magnesium sulfate crystals. Because it does not form a hydrated salt, you can use evaporation. Then we have, which statements about halogens and their compounds is correct? The color of elements gets lighter going down group 7. No, it actually gets darker. The elements get less dense going down group 7. No, actually they get more dense. Fluorine is a gas, chlorine is a gas, bromine is a liquid, iodine is a solid. So the density is increasing over here. When chlorine is added to sodium iodide solution, iodine is formed because chlorine is more reactive, right? As you go down group 7, the reactivity decreases. Chlorine is more reactive, displaces iodine from its compound. So C is the correct statement. Then what do we have? Question 26 says, elements in group 2 of periodic table show the same trends in their reaction with water and their density as group 1. In group 1, what happens? The reactivity with water increases, it gets more and more vigorous, and the density is decreasing. Which row shows how the properties of barium compare with calcium, right? Reaction of barium. So calcium is over here, barium is over here. So if you go down the group, the reactivity increases. So this is incorrect. Density. What should be the density of barium? If I remember this correctly, in group 1, the density, so lithium, sodium, potassium, the density should increase, right? So reaction with water is faster and the density increases, right? That should be your answer. I think melting and boiling point decrease, but the density does increase. Then we have a flammable gas needs to be removed from a tank at an industrial plant. For safety reasons, an inert gas is used. Which gas is suitable? Flammable gas needs to be removed. Okay, methane will cause flame, supporter of combustion. If it is flammable, this is definitely not inert. Obviously, whenever they are saying inert gas, you should go for group 8, right? So argon is your answer. Then question 28, we have a strip of aluminium is placed in a test tube containing aqueous lead nitrate and left for several minutes. Aluminium is higher than lead in reactivity series. Which statement explains why lead is not displaced by this strip of aluminium? Because aluminium oxide has formed a layer on the strip of aluminium. A thin insoluble layer of aluminium nitrate forms on aluminium. All nitrates are soluble, so statement A is incorrect. Nitrate ions are reduced in aqueous solution. No. Ionic bond between lead and nitrate ions are too strong. No. If they were too strong, lead would be above the reactivity. Lead will be above aluminium in the reactivity series. There is unreactive oxide layer on aluminium, Al2O3, which stops the reaction or prevents the reaction from starting at all. Then we have the next question 29. Which statements about the metal zinc are correct? It is extracted from ore bauxite. No. It is used to galvanize steel. Okay. It is used to make alloy brass, zinc and copper. Okay. It reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to produce hydrogen gas. See, I know 3 is correct for sure. I know 1 is incorrect for sure. Right. So 1, 1. Right. 2 and 3 only. 2, 3 and 4. So I don't even need to check 2. I think I only need to check the fourth statement. Is zinc above hydrogen in the reactivity series? I think I think zinc only reacts with hydrogen. Let's remember the reactivity series. I remember it like this, that please stop calling me a cute, I think, cute zebra, right? Instead, learn how copper, okay, this is calcium, this has to be carbon, copper saves silver, gold. Okay, so hydrogen is below zinc, right? So zinc should form this particular reaction. So D is your correct answer, right? Okay, let's erase this much. Let's read the question. Okay, what is the symbol of metal used in manufacture of aircraft because of its strength and low density? Aluminium, right? Without any question, you should remember certain properties. So let's say if some questions take time, at least some questions become very easy for you. Ammonia is manufactured using Haber process. Which statement about this process is correct? The catalyst used for this reaction is vanadium pentoxide. No, it is actually used for contact process. Hydrogen used is extracted from air. It is actually extracted from cracking of hydrocarbon. Using a high pressure increases the yield of ammonia. Using high temperature increases the yield of ammonia. I'll go with pressure because on right hand side the number of moles is less, and the forward reaction, as far as I remember, is exothermic, but we still use 450 degrees Celsius because below this our catalyst does not activate, right? So using high pressure increases the yield of ammonia is the correct answer. Iron can be protected from rusting by attaching a piece of more reactive metal, example magnesium to iron. Which reaction represents reaction that takes place? Which equation represents the reaction that takes place? So if it prevents rusting, then magnesium, if ever iron forms a positive ion, will do this, right? What it will do? Because it is more reactive, right? It will reduce the iron and get oxidized itself, right? Let's have a look what happens. Okay, if this ever happens, yes, magnesium solid goes from Mg2 plus to give out 2 electrons. These 2 electrons will go to iron and iron will become solid. It will not let iron stay as iron until unless solid magnesium is present, because it is more reactive, right? Which row describes two uses of sulfur dioxide? Bleaching, paper pulp, okay, extracting iron from hematite. These are the two options. Obviously, extracting iron from hematite is not the correct answer. Neutralizing acidic industrial waste, it itself is acidic. How can it do that? It cannot. So, preserving food and drink by acting as an inert or non-reactive gas, right? Although it has a choking smell, you can use it to preserve food and drink, right? Then part of, oh, I think there was a question. No, there is not. We are at 33 and this is 34. part of carbon cycle is shown. Combustion, CO2 goes to plant, forms methane, and glucose again forms CO2. Which are process P, Q and R? Glucose to CO2 is photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide to plant is again, I think, photosynthesis, right? And plant to R is decomposition. So this cannot be the answer over here, right? Glucose to carbon dioxide combustion, sorry, this has to be respiration. After looking at the options, I realize my mistake. This has to be respiration. So P has to be respiration. Okay, I think without even looking at Q, this is the answer. And yes, in fact, Q is photosynthesis, right? So that is your answer. Are there any questions? No. Then we have structures of 4 organic molecules are shown. Okay, we'll come back to structures. Let's find what is the question. Which molecules are structural isomers of structure 1? Isomers meaning different structural formula, same molecular formula. To understand that, see, there are 3, 4 and 5 carbon, right? 3, let's not count hydrogen because there are just single bonds. I will show you after I find out the isomer that the hydrogen number is equal. But to find the isomer, you wouldn't require the number of hydrogen because all of them are alkanes. So what are we searching for? We are searching for C5. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now here what has happened? On the second carbon, right? Let me also erase this a little, guys, so it is clear to you what I'm talking about. Okay, let's name the longest chain as well, right? And let me teach you naming. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even if I name it like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So meth, eth, prop and butane, right? And because second carbon has a methyl branch, so I will call it 2-methyl butane, right? Let's find out what is the name to this. If the name is same, right, it is not an isomer. It has to have same number of carbon but different name, right? Different placing of branch. Here 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the longest chain. If you go from here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. And this also in fact has a name 2-methyl butane. So it is not an isomer. It is actually exactly the same compound, right? So not the answer. Now you have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And if you look at it, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 5 is the longest chain. It does have 5 carbon. Let's look at its name, pentane, right? Because no branching. It does not matter if it is bent, right? See, this is a branch and this is a bent. You can count it like this. It is okay if the compound is bent. Only branching gives rise to numbers or names like methyl. With that in mind, this is pentane. So I am sure that this is a isomer. Let's count the number of hydrogen. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12 and 13. I am missing some hydrogen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Okay. I think I made a mistake in counting previously. So this is an isomer. Let's look at this also. 1, 2 and 3. Right? This is the longest chain. If you go like this is also 1, 2 and 3. This is the longest chain. But number of carbon 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. There are 5 carbon. So with that in mind and it being an alkane, let's name this. Right? Let's remove these. Just a second, guys. Okay. Let's remove these numbers because this will cause confusion in naming. Now, no matter how you name it, you will find that the name is meth, eth, prop. So propane, but on the second carbon it has two branches, so I'll write 2,2-dimethyl propane, right? So 2,2-dimethyl propane. So I think fourth is also an isomer. Let's count the number of hydrogen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. Right? I'm not saying you should not count the number of hydrogen. Make your job easier. If all of them are alkanes, you can first find the number of carbon, then the name, and then check for hydrogen just to be sure. So only 3 and 4. Let's see if there are options like that. Yes. Option C is your answer. Then which chemical reaction, which chemical equation for substitution of alkane with chlorine is correct? This will be a photochemical reaction, right? We have seen such a question in our paper. This will be a photochemical reaction. Which chemical equation for substitution of alkane with chlorine is correct? Is this an alkane? Yes, this is an alkane, right? This is not an alkane. This is also not an alkane. So don't check for that. One hydrogen gets reduced, HCl forms. Okay. Here, two hydrogen gets reduced, H2 is formed. Right. This is substitution with chlorine. Okay. So here HCl is formed, so that hydrogen, one of the chlorine forms a bond with hydrogen, other chlorine takes place of this hydrogen. So option A is your correct answer, right? Then we have, I'm sorry, I think, just a second guys. So here we go, we have question 37. Part of the structure of a very large molecule is shown. So we have a polymer. Which term describes the small unit used to make this molecule? So if you want to make polymer, you start with monomer, right? So hydrocarbon, no. Monomer, yes. Polymer is the final compound. Saturated, not applicable over here. Then we have question number 38. Propene reacts with steam to form propanol. Which type of reaction is taking place? Addition reaction, because there is only one product. So I will go with addition reaction. Right? Then we have which statement about aqueous ethanoic acid is correct? It reacts with magnesium to produce a salt and hydrogen. Because it is an acid, this is a characteristic reaction for an acid. It reacts with sodium hydroxide to produce a salt and hydrogen. Because it is hydroxide, it will form water. It reacts with ammonia salts to produce ammonia. No, it forms ammonium. I don't think it's that acidic to remove ammonia from its salts. It turns red litmus paper blue. No, it will turn them blue litmus paper red rather. Right? Then we have question number 40. Let's look at this question. So we have diagram shows partial structure of pteryline. Okay. From which pair of compound is it made? Let's have a look. So this is the ester linkage we have, right? This is a polyester that we are looking at. So if I construct it, this empty box should have on both sides carboxylic acid, right? And this gray box, right, because it only has oxygen on both sides, it can only have hydrogen, right? Because when this compound forms, only water is removed. So check for this compound, and I think option A itself is your correct answer over here, right? I have made a few chapters revision videos. You can go through the channel and find those videos. If you find them helpful, do let me know in the comment box below. If you find this paper helpful, let me know in the comment box below. Thank you for watching, and